So hello there everyone. Today we are making green beans amandine. The French pronunciation of almond is almond, and the name Amandine is a girl's name of French origin meaning much loved. Of course, amandine is also a French culinary term for a garnish of almonds. You'll see recipes with the English version of the word almond in the title pronounced almondine. This is a simple classic dish. It's a perfect example of how a few ingredients can have such impact on flavor. And we have the classics for the flavor base. You have your garlic and your shallot, and you have acid in the wine and lemon juice that intensifies the flavor, and of course salt, which brings the whole thing together and makes everything, as usual, taste so much better. So I have some water boiling here, and let me just take that lid off. Okay, and I also have a sheet pan that I've lined with paper towels. And I'm going to just blanch these. I'm going to turn that heat up and get this back up to an actual boil here. Now, what I'm going to do with these is blanch them, which means I want to bring the color up. I want to partially cook them, but I really like vegetables on the undercooked side, and I really hate them on the overcooked side. So we're going to just leave them in there for a minute. So I'll just carefully drop them in. And let them swim around there in a little while, but you'll see in a second here that the color is going to dramatically change. I'm right about that, right? They can see that? Or they can't see that? Okay. So I would say, just depending on what your water is doing and how much of a boil you have going, you'll see it's coming back up here now. Drop down in temperature, of course, when I put the green beans in. And now they're starting to get a bright green. So I would say you're looking at a minute to minute and a half tops. At the end of this process, we're going to be tossing these in the pan, giving them a little more heat. That will be with the olive oil and the almonds and the lemon zest and all of that. So that's going to give them cook them a little bit further, but basically it's going to warm them up. So they're going to be I would like to call them al dente. I don't think that they're going to be crisp like snapping, but they're not going to be soggy for sure. And that's something I always like to avoid. Now you can see, look at that color is just gorgeous. Okay, then I'm going to take these out. I can hear them popping, by the way, and that's a sign that water's getting to the inside and it's starting to cook them. So I think I'm happy with taking them out now. And look at what a difference just that little bit of time in the water makes. When I'm doing a crudité, which of course is, you know, a vegetable platter, I always blanch my vegetables to bring up the color. And I do it just until they get bright, and then I take them out. So they have all of the quality of the rawness, because you're not really cooking the rawness out, but they have the benefit of looking beautiful. There we go. Okay, cut the heat on that.
Do you need to use an ice bath, or when would you recommend an ice bath or something like this?
You know, I'm not using an ice bath right now because I just barely blanch these. If I wanted to get them further along and I needed to stop the cooking, then I would definitely use an ice bath. But because I just did these for a minute, I'm just letting them cool like this and they will be fine. If you do use an ice bath, if that makes you more comfortable, make sure that you put them in the ice bath, cool them down, and then take them out, because another way to destroy a vegetable is to leave them in the ice bath for too long, because then they get a different kind of soggy because they take on all of that water. So I'm just going to set these up here for the time being. So now I have some other ingredients. And this recipe goes together pretty quickly, so I'm going to get all my other ingredients prepped, okay? And I can see now that my olive oil is in the other room. Hold on. Okay. I need a tablespoon of olive oil. I now have that. Put that right there. I need a clove of garlic, which I have here whole, and a shallot. And these shallots that I got are so tiny, I'm going to actually use 2. Of course, whenever you put a whole anything and you don't specify the size, you have to kind of make a judgment call. That's my judgment call. So very tiny work here. So I'm just slicing this guy up. And the same with the shallots. I think what I'll do, because these are so small, is I'll cut them in half, stem to end, and then cut them like I do an onion. Just little cuts like that, and run my knife through. Small work here. And these are pretty oniony shallots, I must say. Sometimes, I view a shallot as being a milder onion, and sometimes they just aren't. And they have a little tinge of garlickiness to them as well, which is always good. So even though this is super small, I'm still doing the exact same thing I do with onions. So cutting it stem to end. If this were bigger, I might take a slice like this, but I'm going to mince the whole thing in the end anyway. And then I'm doing little tiny cuts like that, as close to the stem as I can, and then I'll just run my knife through. When I get too close to my fingers, I flip it forward. Okay. And then the last one here. And I'm going to run my knife through again just because I really want these to be as fine as I can get them, because I want them to really distribute and cling to the green beans. Same thing with the garlic, and some of these garlic pieces are a little larger, so I want to get them fine so they distribute evenly as well. Yes, that is a strong shallot. My goodness. Okay, let's get these in a bowl and move them away from me. There we go. Okay, what is next on my list? Okay, we need some wine and we need some lemon juice. Just go ahead and measure those out right now. So the wine, I have a nice little Orvieto Classico. This is really, really a nice wine. Nice and dry. You want a dry wine, not a sweet wine. 1/4 cup. Set that over here. And then we need some lemon juice. And we need a tablespoon of lemon juice, and we need some zest. And the best thing to do with this is to zest the lemon first. Get that part out of the way, and because it's so much easier to zest a whole lemon than it is a cut lemon. We need 2 teaspoons of this. And just remember not to go too far into the pith. It gets really bitter if you get down into the white part, so we're looking just for the yellow lemon zest. And I think I'm going to be into that second lemon, so it just depends on the size of your lemons in terms of how many you need. Not more than 2 though for this recipe. Yep, I'm going to go to the second one. And I'm not going to actually measure this. I'm going to just kind of eyeball it. But I've been cooking for so long that I can kind of measure a tablespoon and a teaspoon with my eyes. So I'm comfortable with that. Yeah, a little bit more. Okay, and then I said, what did I say? We needed a tablespoon of lemon juice as well, too. Right. Now, these measurements might seem a little on the lean side to you, But I promise you, when you make this recipe, there's going to be plenty of flavor, and you don't want the lemon to be too lemony. We're going to cook it off anyway, but some of that will remain. But I promise you, it's a really nice, bright, balanced flavor to the dish. So at least the first time you make it, you can always make adjustments afterwards. But the first time you make it, just trust me on this and taste it and see what you think. And then if you make it again, or you want to add some lemon juice at the time, you certainly can do that. But try it this way first. And I'm going to measure this because I think that probably is my tablespoon. Yep, it is. There we go. Yep, and I didn't have any seeds in there, and it looks clear to me, so I'm not going to strain it. Set that aside. Okay, what else do I need here? It's all going in the same pan, so I'm comfortable with doing a few things on this table. We need some, on my cutting board, we need some parsley, and I have some fresh Italian parsley here. We're going to chop this kind of roughly, but we're doing leaves only.
The garlic?
Didn't I just do the garlic? Yes, I did the garlic with the shallot.
Oh, okay.
Thank you. Mark's job, part of Mark's job is to make sure I don't forget an ingredient. It's amazingly easy to do. And here I'm not checking stuff off of my list, which I always do when I'm cooking, not on Facebook. So it's just a good idea to check things off and make sure you don't miss an ingredient. So he's my checker right now. Okay, while I'm doing this, any questions, Mark?
If you have an almond allergy, are there any suggestions you could offer?
Sure. You probably have to change the name of the dish because it implies the almonds, but I would say my second choice would be pecans. We did a green bean recipe. Actually, the last recipe we did on Facebook was also a green bean recipe, and that had hazelnuts. Hazelnuts are wonderful with green beans, so that would be another second choice. How about you, Mark? Can you think of?
I like hazelnuts. I think it's a nice compliment.
Yeah, and they're unusual. They're not so. They're pretty readily available, but they're not so typical. Let's see how we do with this. I'm gonna just take a little bit of that shallot off of there that I missed. I can stack these up to a certain degree. I don't think you have to get too formal about it, but I'm going for 2 tablespoons, but I'm not going for, mincing. I want some color from this. It's going to contrast a little bit with the green, even though they're both green. It's going to add a nice fresh element. I think that looks good, and I think that looks like maybe a little more than 2 tablespoons, but I am happy. So I think I'm just going to slide this over. Okay, I think I've got everything prepped here. Okay, so let's pull this here. I've got a high-sided skillet. And we're going to go for medium heat. And by the way, if you did the countdown, or you're in the club and you looked at the recipe initially, I say medium-high heat. That recipe, we had some problems with our recipe program, so the recipe that went in said medium-high heat because it was pulled from some of my old files. We've had a challenging computer week, but so medium heat. You're going to turn it up to medium-high in a little bit. Okay, so we've got a tablespoon of extra virgin olive oil, the only kind of olive oil to buy. And then we're going to go ahead and put our shallot and garlic in. You notice that heated up right away. Now, we don't want to brown these. We're just sauteing them lightly and only for a minute. But they're chopped fairly fine, so they're going to be cooked enough for exactly what we want. The garlic in particular is going to take some of that kind of acrid raw garlicness out of it, which is always important. But keep stirring them because you need to make sure that they don't brown or stick, which they will do if you're not stirring. So you gotta hands-on here for a minute while you're doing this. It smells delightful. And the smell has already changed. When you first put them in, you kind of get hit with that raw garlic, and you know, certainly those shallots were pretty strong. Now it's taken on a sweeter quality. That acrid raw garlic smell is gone. It smells delightful. Garlic and onions. Yum. Okay, so 1 minute. Now I'm going to turn my heat up. I'm going to call that a minute, because it looks the way I want it to medium high. Let's start with the wine. This is my, don't let that worry you. There we go. This is my 1/4 cup of wine, and this is my tablespoon of lemon juice. Okay. Now, this we want to cook off the entire way. So, that's why we want that heat up. It's going to go pretty quickly. And we were talking in the member webinar about how much wine alcohol is actually retained when you use wine. And it was surprisingly, it was like, depending on how long you're cooking it, a lot more than I thought. I thought it would be maybe 10 to 20%, but it's anywhere from 40 to, what, 60%?
Yeah.
Depending on the time. And I mean, and that was for things that were cooked with wine for an hour. It still had that much residual alcohol. So if you're making like in the cooking club, we make balsamic beef in the basics. That's one of the recipes, and that has a significant amount of red wine in it. And I always thought, well, you know, it's simmered for, I don't know, 3 hours or whatever I leave it on for. There's not much alcohol left in that, but there actually is. So that was eye-opening. So what's lovely about this, and you see it's kind of taking on a little bit of a golden color. What it's lovely about it is it almost thickens, and what you're going to be left with is almost sauce-like. And I think that's looking great. So this is pretty much cooked off. I'm going to turn that heat back down. I actually turned it off so I could reach around here. All right, and here are my green beans. Let's toss those green beans in. You really don't feel a whole lot different than they did when they were raw, so that's a good thing. I'll turn my heat back on after I get these all in there. Okay, great. Let's just stir these around. Get them covered a little bit. And now let's turn that heat back on. We're just going to stir them around and cook them for a minute to warm them up. And let's toss in our toasted almonds. I toasted these almonds, by the way, at 350 for about, it's probably 5 minutes. So nice golden brown. Open the door of the oven. You can smell the almonds, but they're not really brown. They're just a little bit golden, which is a nice way to have them. Okay. Okay, I'm going to turn that off and grab my kosher salt. You can use, actually this is Malden sea salt, so you can use kosher salt or Malden sea salt. I like a little crunch. That. And my pepper grinder. Right here. A nice grind of freshly ground black pepper. Okay. Now there are two ways to do this last part. You first want to give them a little taste, so let's do that. Oh, it's so good. It's lemony, it's salty. It's, I don't know, it just has this wonderful freshness to it. I'll set that aside, not throw it away. You can tell it's certainly crunchy. Okay, let's get a platter here. So you can toss in your lemon zest now and your parsley, or you can sprinkle it on later. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead with the lemon zest and toss that in now. And then I'll do the parsley on top when I plate it. Okay, let's get this. And that is super hot. Okay, there we go. And what will happen, and there's just no avoiding this, is that the almonds will sink to the bottom. So a nice way to do this is just try to get out as many of the green beans as you can, and then you can put those almonds on top where everyone can see them because they look so pretty. And spread them around. Beautiful. And then sprinkle with the parsley. Like I said, I like to sometimes do that because then I can kind of go outside of the beans and garnish the plate at the same time. What do you think of that?
It's good.
Yeah, I think so too. We're having green beans for dinner and something else. I don't know what else, but for sure this. Okay, any more questions?
How do you feel about pre-snapped beans in the bag in the store?
Oh, good question. Hang on. So I'm so glad you asked that. How do I feel about pre-snap beans? You know, the second you cut a vegetable or you snap the end off or anything that you do that takes it from its original state, that vegetable is going to start to denigrate. So I never buy anything. Not pre-cut garlic, not pre-snap beans. Sometimes that's all we can get, and what winds up happening. And these, by the way, were not pre-snapped today, but sometimes they sell them. I don't know why they pre-snap them, but I suppose it's convenient. But what happens is after a day, the end gets weird, and you still have to snap them. So don't snap them at all in the store. Let me do it at home so that I can have more of the beans that I just paid for. But on a general principle is I do not like pre-cut vegetables ever. So there you have it. Great question. I've been dying to get that out.
I'm having a bit of a Facebook issue, so if there's any other questions that come in, we'll answer them after it's over.
Okay, that's fine. Mark just said he's having a bit of a Facebook issue. I'm not sure what that means, but we have them from time to time for sure. So if you do have questions and we can't see them, which sounds like it might be a possibility, sorry about that. I will go online to both accounts afterwards and answer any questions that I see. And of course, you can always reach out to me through the website. There's a chat bot at the bottom of the Bonicelli Cooking Club website, and that's a great way to get to me, or Messenger on Facebook is another way to get to me as well. So if you do need to have something answered that way, you can certainly do that as well. Please remember to go to the holiday countdown calendar. We're going to give away some really cool stuff between now and Christmas Day. And don't forget to go to check out the Bonicelli Cooking Club in and of itself. That's bonicellicookingclub.com. We'd love to have you, and there is a blog there with lots of recipes like this one. So thank you so much for everyone for watching. Take care, and we will see you next week. Ciao. Mwah.